Well, and for your son, and
Yeah, it's very hard on him. All
wow.
right. And there we go, live on YouTube. And
Who
turn
wants
the
to
mic.
start? Anybody here? You want me to start or you start or what?
Someone else can start.
I can be Wapnick to, I mean, I'm reading from his thing and I think Dove can then, should I go to Dove, over to Dove and then to Laurie? Is that how you do it? Or
Sure, that's fine.
It doesn't matter. It's spontaneous.
I know, you're right. You're right. Okie
All right,
doke, are
well, the
we
mic is
on?
Go right on ahead.
Do not plan. Do not
Good
plan.
morning. Good morning, mighty companions.
Good morning.
Eternal holiness abides in me. My holiness is far beyond my own ability to understand or know, yet God, my Father, who created it, acknowledged my holiness as his. Our will together understands it, and our will together knows that it is so. So, Ken, this is from the journey of the workbook, and I'm going to just read and see what comes through. As long as I think I'm an individual, bodily self, I can never know my holiness. And that is actually true, because we want to know your holiness is to be. It's no intellectual understanding. It's a knowing of the true self, the infinite self. And the ego can't know what that is. So, because the ego really just has a script to follow, and that's it. It's not, the thing that I've seen in this mind is that the ego keeps coming back, just as the Course would say, it gets a little vicious. It comes up with very creative stories, and I often wondered, how can something like a machine keep know that I'm not, I'm trying to get away from it or just let it go? I don't understand that either. And that's the whole point of Course in Miracles. It's not to really figure anything out, because that is the analytical mind. I've got a very analytical mind, because I always love psychology and understanding human behavior. And my idea of for me, this process is really about being fully human and fully divine. It's not about, just saying, well, I'm not here, because I am, for the first time in my whole life, enjoying being a person too, even though I'm just a shadow in the mind. But I feel this wholeness, this completeness that I've never felt before. And now I'm watching the ego want to get out of the present moment. And the reason it does that is it has no clue what the present moment is. It doesn't know that is the reflection of heaven. The present moment is presence, and presence is love's presence, and that is what we are. We do not have to go and search for love, because we are made only from love. So in my experience is that I'm being called a little bit more to not sign up to judge, but the ego will judge on its own, because that is how it's built. It's completely a thought system of judgment, and it has that. And if you're not aware that the ego is the one that's part of us that's judging, we really can feel bad about ourselves. I mean, it'll point out things that really are just ridiculous. So Ken goes on to say, His Holiness can be known only by uniting my will with God's. So if you're with God's will, there's nothing to ask for. And when I look at my path of the whole process of, I think I started like 17, 18 years ago, maybe 20, I don't know. But I really believe we're on the path our whole lives. I think the path, we wanted to experience being a person and to enjoy that experience. The problem is we were listening to a mind that doesn't really want us to enjoy ourselves here. It can't, because it's a computer. What can a computer do? It doesn't feel, it doesn't know. It's just downloaded a story in my mind. And yet, while I'm here in a body, I do want to experience being fully human. What does that really mean? Being fully human is being in joy. Being fully human is to love my brothers as myself. Now, if I think that I'm the body, it can be hard to see holiness because the way the ego mind works is it doesn't have any idea about holiness. The story it made up was very actually cruel. If you look at the cruelty in some of the religions, that can be very cruel. I mean, to tell an innocent being that they're going to go to hell is cruel. And that is pretty much the ego. So what do I want? What do I want now? I just want to be the now. You know, the movie I watched, I think it was, you know, there was a guy that went to a, God, maybe you guys will know what it is. It's not The Karate Kid. It's one of those movies where Nick Nolte says to the guy who's trying to wake up, and if you can remember, Dov, when I pass it to you, maybe somebody else can, because I don't remember the movie, but he's saying, what are you? When he's going on a rope in this movie. And he said, I'm the moment. And I got hit so hard in that movie because the moment was always alive. That is what we are. We're aliveness. We are just alive. And what feels alive for us comes from grace. And the way I see this whole play, grace did it all, no matter what. And if we believe our mind, we can choose again. You cannot make a mistake in this process. This is a perfect process to bring us home. And what is home? It's here now. The reflection of heaven and the holiness of all of the beings that are living. And that goes for the dogs and it goes for the trees, because the trees are alive. They talk. I have a book that, you know, talks about how this man could hear the trees talk. It's just getting into that silent moment. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dov Fishman. Thank you.
Okay. So my question is, who would you be without your costume? Yeah, we all show up here in a costume saying, who are you? We spend the rest of our life trying to figure out who others are, and everybody is moi. You know, we're all the same. We're all one with different costumes. Can you imagine that? You know, that's why I like this equality. It says we're all the same. And if you know we're all the same, you don't have to figure out who's in costume. You're always talking to yourself. You know, there's only one self. You gotta laugh. Laurie just put up The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. That's the movie you mentioned. Wow.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. I know.
You're really a Hollywood buff, Laurie. You know, I just want to mention that today's lesson 299, is eternal holiness abides in me. And just to give a little thing on it, it says, the light of my holiness shared with all is the greatest power of the Father's love. So, you know, that's all we're looking at is the light of love, the light of love. But sometimes we get confused and mixed up thinking that the darkness I see in you is real. And of course, there's nothing here that's real, nothing. It's only in that spontaneous now, that place that you were just describing, Sharon. And what is the word that you use again?
Well, what I brought up was, you know, in The Peaceful Warrior, Nick Nolte said to the, you know, I forget his name too, but he said, what are you? And because he wanted to wake up this young man, and he's well known, and maybe Laurie will remember his name, but at the same time, the moment. We are the moment. We are here-ness, we are now-ness, we are present love.
Okay, so the moment is another word for divine presence, which is another word for reality, which is another word for oneness. Wow, all that stuff comes out of just the idea that we are one. We are one. those are the three words I used on my marriage vows when John Mundy married us literally 42 years ago. And I said, we join with our Father's purpose to remember that we are one, and that's all included equally. It's in that inclusion that you invite atonement automatically. And with that, Laurie, I'm going to turn it over to your shining, smiling face.
Oh, well, on the picture, it's shining and smiling. In in my room, I'm not even dressed, so that's why I don't have my video on. I'm going to continue reading where Sharon left off on 299. Oh, you only read part of that sentence. Read it again. As long as I think I am an individual bodily self, I can never know my holiness. For the ego's self was made to conceal the Holy Son that rests safely and comfortably in the right mind. His holiness can be known only by uniting my will with God's, which I do through the Holy Spirit's forgiveness. In this union, I realized that everything I believed was false because it was based on separation. We are more than familiar with these humbling lines, acceptance of which will bring us salvation. I wanted to make a comment about what you said, Sharon, about being fully human, because I've always actually disliked that phrase. Because when I think of human beings, I think of the ego. And when human beings get together in groups, I think of the mass ego and the mass insanity. But the way you put it is much gentler and more loving and doesn't involve the resistance and hatred that I feel about being fully human. Because when I say, well, let's see, being fully human means we start wars. Being fully human means we get diseases with these bodies and we keep trying to fix these bodies. So I thought that was interesting because I respect your opinion so much that I like the way you rephrased that. But I'm not sure, I don't know, Holy Spirit would have to do a big number on me to get me to accept that phrase. But I don't want to resist anything. So I don't know. But I don't know who that actor is in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, except for Nick Nolte. And then the other thing here with this first line, as long as I think I'm an individual bodily self, I can never know my holiness. When I see clients, I'm a broken record. That's what I keep saying. The answer is always the same, no matter what situation you are presenting. The answer is to deny the ego, deny the bodily self, deny any reality or power to it at all, and choose again. Remember that you have already accepted atonement. Remember that you are the higher self, the one self of God. So that brings me back to when you say we're fully human and fully divine, for me, that doesn't work because when I acknowledge any of the humanity of in form and everything like that, to me, that's making real something that's not real. And yet I can feel within me this almost kind of like battle or resistance, and I don't want that. So it could just be the ego saying, I don't like human beings. And I was noticing earlier this morning, we have a couple cats here, and there's this one cat. I live with my sister, and it's her cats. And the one cat I don't really like. And as I passed the cat, I thought, I don't like that cat. And then I thought, that's not a good thought. You know, you don't have to like the cat, but you don't have to say and repeat that over and over. I don't like that cat. I don't like that cat. I don't like that cat. So I do that with humanity. I do that with earth and with form. There's so many things I do that with, which is totally ego. And the ego's just pulling me in and roping me in again. You could say, well, I don't want to be dishonest and pretend and fake that I like it, because that's what I used to do when I was younger. Well, let's be positive. And then I got into being really, really negative because I thought that was the way to go. but to gently and lovingly say, yeah, humanity, there is a lot of beauty in humanity and there's a lot of ugliness, but to just let it go gently and lovingly and look past it is probably the path I need to take rather than embracing it. I don't know, maybe I will end up embracing it, and in a couple of years I'll be talking differently, which would be great. But right now I can't seem to do that. So anyway, I'm going to put it back over to you, Sharon.
It's probably that we're saying the same thing because these are concepts. And the truth is, you don't study A Course in Miracles and say, well, you're fully human, because the only way for the mind to be trained is to deny the person. However, I just want to tell a little story about the process I've been in since I've talked about it quite a bit. And I don't want to go into the story in the past, but there is something that came to me. I had a grandfather, and he died when I was 10, and I came from a very neurotic family. I mean, they wrote the book on neurosis. I was just more, I'm Jewish, and my grandmother spoke Yiddish, and Dov knows about, people that, of course you do too, Lori, because we're one. But I always say that Jewish people are very funny people, and they're also extremely neurotic. And my family was like that. But I had a grandfather who died when I was 10, and he came to me when I fell asleep. But he didn't come to me like a dream figure. He came physically to me and kissed me goodbye. And I couldn't breathe. And my grandmother and my mother and father came into my room. I could not breathe. I was gasping for breath. That's how real this was. And my mother said, this is a mishigas, and that is Yiddish for crazy. But I didn't let it go. See, once the truth is there, it doesn't go away. So, as you know, the process that I was in elementary school, I was scared of people. I was quiet. I didn't talk. I didn't have the ability to even have a temper when I was young. I don't understand that, but that's just the way I showed up. But my grandfather was like me. So as I developed into junior high, I became the social butterfly. I could only see love in people. And I wasn't a real fearful person, even growing up with my mother, who had so many mental health issues and physical issues. And I would anger her because I was this happy person. There was something in me, and my grandfather was like that. And I have his picture of Dove, see? I found it, and I feel like he is my guardian angel, okay? And the interesting thing is that I had his kind of disposition. As an art teacher, I was extremely successful teaching children because I saw them as love. In fact, back in those days, I called everybody love. Now, the interesting thing was, because I had a husband who appeared to be mean, a mother that could be very mean. And by the way, in my 30s and 40s, I became rager. So it's not like I don't have the ego that everyone else has. But the way this character Sharon came into this dream figure Sharon came in was craving love, craving, because we all know from being a course student that we all know this is true. And how it shows up in us shows up, but not by us, by the universe. And how do we get picked to even go on this path? We don't know. So I don't see that it's any different than the way you see it, Laurie, because I'm not pointing out that person saying, look at her body, she's so beautiful, wish I looked like her. That isn't my message today. Is to be fully human, is to love your humanity, to love everything as it is, and to see that everybody's really doing their best. What is real happiness? To wish it for the reflection. So when I taught children my whole, until I was like 50, I had that art school in Philadelphia. And I have to say this is true. I never, ever didn't love going to work. I loved it and so this was interesting because, Lori did hear about my story, and it's quite a story. I mean, there was a lot of abuse, yet there was a gift. There was such a gift. And that was the gentleness that I had in me that I saw in everybody else. And that's why I look at life now very differently, where I don't feel we need, as far as like, yes, there are people that completely, their person just drops. And that's their curriculum. That is not this one's curriculum yet. And whether it happens, I don't really care, because I'm enjoying this dream more than I ever have, because I don't have the running tapes telling me all the judgments that it has been. Now, the mind's still there, and I'm sure it'll be there until I'm out of the body. I don't know how this works, but this is what I want to say. I don't know. That's a mantra, because we really don't know how we got on this path, why we're here, because we're not really here. It's a dream, right? But in the experience of being human and fully divine is being in love with all of it. Looking at this movie as the comedy and tragedy that it is, and laughing. But the laugh comes from the depths of our being. So when I look at the holiness and yes, if you're a Ken Wapnick student, and I am too, he's one of my teachers. He's got a lot of teachers, but I would say he's one of the best. And why is it that I loved him so much and still do? Because he made it easy. This is not a hard process. If a teacher tells me I have to meditate 3 hours, an hour, that is not for me, because I'm being directed perfectly by the being that's living through this body-mind vehicle. So I feel that when a teaching, and this is the attraction I've always had for Dov Fishman, he always included everybody, because what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do? Trying to do what we did in school, be top in our class, be the awakened one, be the one that's fearless? No. What we're here to do is join and love one another as ourself. And that is what Jesus has taught the world, to see your brother as yourself. Love God with all your heart and soul. I didn't even know what that meant when I was in my 30s, because I didn't really have a relationship. Like, Lori, I've read your book again. I'm a big reader, and I just love that book that you had. And I saw the way you were brought up. You had religion was a lot different for you than me, because you had a different religion. It was a little, I would say it was just different. I don't know if it was harsher, but anybody that ever talks about hell to me has to move out of the way for me, because I feel very sensitive to every being on this planet. And I want to recommend your book, Lori, because I think it's one book that I don't think a lot of course students even know, but it's a fabulous book, because she's really talking about, in her book, she's pretty much telling us about what she grew up with, and it's called Breaking Free. And Breaking Free is just a memoir of a person that's had maybe a tougher religion than mine, because it wasn't that tough, my religion, at least not for me. What I did see a lot was judgment all the time, and prejudice too. I mean, my grandmother raised me till I was 7, and she was very Jewish. So, I wasn't even allowed when I started dating to date a non-Jewish man. That's just the way it was. However, the growth that I've gone through is unfreaking believable. And I think every one of us, that's why I comment all the time about ACIM Gather now, because I've been in several groups over the years. And I would say this group, for me, just for this mind, is the perfect group, because it's all about acceptance, love, and being there for your brother, not saying you're doing it wrong, not saying, you're not good enough. No, they're the Christ. I'm not telling my family anymore to do this process. If I see them that they need to do it, it's my mind that needs to do it. So it's not like it's hard to really look at it, but I didn't have the hate for humanity that my mom did. And that's just, we had different roles, my mother and I. She was not a lover of humanity at all. She had a lot happen to her. And sometimes I really would rub her. I upset her sometimes, because I think she thought I was a little ditzy because I loved people. When I got older, Sharon thinks everybody needs to be happy. Well, there was something in me that always knew that. And that's just the way I came in. And that was the gift of truth. So we really are unfolding now. And Dov had mentioned that we are in a place now as the ACIM Gather group that we have ripened, we're seasoned. We have done this long enough where now it's like our work is just our work. It's done. We're here now. loving our brothers as ourselves, and giving everyone freedom to be who they are. And with that, Doug, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, yeah, that you really covered a lot of ground there. Listening to you and how I think it was your grandma who thought you did see. Actually, I see that you broke the mold. You know, like you broke out of the family mold where, you know, like in the Jewish religion, they kind of mold you to follow the tradition. You know, Judaism really isn't a religion. It's a tradition, and you have a mold, and you got to fit into the mold, and you broke out of the mold. So it's kind of funny listening to, yeah. I mean, basically, you know, there's no accident that you love art. Art is very creative. So the creative mind will break out of the mold simply because you are a co-creator. He tells you, you and your father are co-creators. So you're creating for truth, and truth will correct all the errors of your mind. The errors are the things that we mold people in, you know, your belief system, which is a lie that you know, that's what religions are. I mean, religions are a belief system. And none of us need to believe in what our parents told us was true, because they themselves were going through their own awakening process. The awakened mind doesn't judge. So the idea you shouldn't do this and you can't do that would never, ever come up in the awakened mind. So I want to take a look at that quote from Ken Wapnick, which I did put on the chat. It says, Jesus knew that his reality was outside the world of bodies. You know, as long as you're looking at people as bodies, yourself as a body, you really can't break out. I mean, they are now saying that what makes you old and tired and ready to leave is the toxins, and what they're talking about is the toxins in the body. But if there's toxins in the body, there's also toxins in the mind. And I took a look at my own awakening, my own rebirth, which happened when I was 32 years old, and you know, it happened for me very quickly because I did take some mescaline, which is a mushroom that allows you to kind of let go and look. And I had taken mescaline many times before, and you always look outside and you see the people that you're with very clearly, and you feel very wise. But this time I hadn't slept in 24 hours. It was like where most marathon encounters actually start after you haven't slept for 24 hours, because your defenses are way down. You're not there defending yourself and looking at somebody else's stuff. Your defenses are down. And I looked within. And when you look within, you see exactly what it is that Jesus says. You know, the ego tells you, don't look within, because if you look within, you know what's going to happen to you. Well, this time I looked within, I cried for hours. And that crying, you know, I realized that crying, I call it orgasmic crying. Crying removes the toxins from your mind. You can do all kinds of things to remove toxins from your body, but crying, looking within and seeing your life will remove the toxins from your mind. And at the end of the 2 hours of almost nonstop crying, I saw this picture of me in a garden, a younger version of me in the garden with a shirt, a t-shirt that said, "Love the truth." And you know, until then, you don't want to know the truth. You're wearing your costume. You want to be a false version of what you are, and you want everyone else to see who you are. No, you don't care what everyone else sees. You just want the truth. And so, like Ken Wapnick says, Jesus knew that his reality was outside the world of bodies. And when you're outside the world of bodies, you're in that moment, as you call it. And the word moment is another word for the holy instant. And the holy instant is now, the divine presence. And it's only in the now that you can truly know yourself or know the truth. It's always now. And now is timeless. It's ageless. The body ages, but spirit is ageless, timeless, eternal. And it's in that eternal now you can know the truth of what you are. And it's only in the now you can know that we are one. There's only one. There's not 2, 3, 4, whatever. That's the toxins. The toxins are many, and the healing is oneness. That's the name of my book, Into Oneness. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic on. Oh, I'm going to put up one other thing that this is from today's lesson, basically, which is basically eternal holiness abides in me. I just put it in the chat. I rest in the safety of my holiness with all in the Father. So the Father and the Son are one, and that's our holiness. And you can use the word holiness with a capital H, or you can use it with a capital W. Same thing. I am whole. If you lack anything, or you think you need something, or you think you're less than, and you're unequal, you're listening to the voice of insanity telling you, Meshuggah, Meshuggah, Meshuggah. Mishigas, Mishigas, Mishigas. And I know, Sharon, that you're laughing. The world of death is no longer here. You know, bodies die. No, I'm not a body. I am free. I am still. As love created me, we are the love of God. We are resurrected in the light of love. We are resurrected in the light of love. With that, Laurie, turning this mic on over to you, the one, the only, Laurie Coburn.
Thank you, Dove. I'm going to continue reading from lesson 299 in Ken's Journey Through the Workbook. Ken Wapnick's Journey Through the Workbook. That's a tongue twister. And he quotes here from chapter 18, section 6, which is called Beyond the Body. You are still convinced that your understanding is a powerful contribution to the truth and makes it what it is. Yet we have emphasized that you need understand nothing. Salvation is easy just because it asks nothing you cannot give right now. I'm sorry, that was chapter 18, section 4. All we are asked to give is acknowledgement of our unholiness, releasing our identification with it. This allows the mind's natural holiness to shine through unimpeded by guilt. Our part is simply to bring unholiness to holiness, illusion to truth, and fear to love. Recall this all-important statement from the text. And this is from chapter 16, section 4. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all of the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. It is not necessary to seek for what is true, but it is necessary to seek for what is false. So when you're talking, Sharon, about loving everyone and loving everything, this is a subtle way the ego gets in. We have to look at these 1,000 scraps of fear that Jesus talks about. And we don't have to freak out about them or get really intense about clearing them out, but just notice them. And as each one arises, just brush it away. But you're talking about loving everyone. I do love everyone. It's very easy for me to love almost every single person. In my whole career as a psychotherapist, there were only about 2 clients that I did not like. You know, they were just so defended and so crusty that I couldn't get past their defenses to like them. Probably today I could. So when the ego wants to tell me, you hate humanity, I hate humanity as a whole. Humanity as a whole is so stupid and insane. Well, individually, I love everyone. So just if I don't allow that thought of, I can't stand humanity, or I don't like that particular cat, that type of thing, those little thoughts come in and we can just go, nope, that's an ego thought. I don't have to give that any energy or I don't have to believe that thought. I don't have to give it any reality because it's not true. Part of me loves that cat. And I have an example, which is not about a person, but I do a series of yoga poses. And this one pose, I think it might be called the camel. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's this back bend type of pose. And I used to say, I can't stand this pose. And every time I would do that pose, I would think in my head, oh, this is my least favorite pose, my least favorite pose. And I finally thought, stop saying that. Just stop saying that. You don't have to like, but just don't say those things. And John Mundy talks about the spiritual word diet, where we don't say words like hate, ugly, stupid, can't stand it, those types of things, and swear words. And I'm bad with swear words. One swear word is like one Lay's potato chip for me. I'm often running for weeks, and then I have to stop and purge and fast and get rid of the swear words from my thinking and from my verbalizations. And then it starts up again. It's just, swear words are tough for me. So anyway, when we stop doing those, we feel better. So I had done that for years. I don't say the word, I hate this, I hate that. Then I started doing it again. And it just kind of creeps in. Well, back to this yoga pose. I used to say that all the time. Well, now I stopped saying it a long time ago. When I do that pose, I just love it. It feels so good. It's such a good stretch. And whether that's because I stopped saying I hate this pose, or if it was just a matter of my body's changed now that when I do that stretch, it just feels so good and it doesn't hurt like it used to, maybe. I don't know. But we do have to watch our words and our thinking. And we have to really, the Course calls it vigilance. And sometimes that feels like hard work to be vigilant all the time, but it gets easier. I was talking to a client yesterday who said it feels like this constant, fight with the ego. And I said, you don't want to fight with something that's not there. You simply want to look at it and watch it and keep affirming your true self. And he is saying, he goes, we've been working together for a couple months, and he says, for the first time in 30 years, he has some moments or extended periods of peace, which he never had before, because the ego, it was just bam, 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 bam. And so now he has hope. And I told him, I said, I still have periods where I fall back into the ego, but what used to be months and years of depression and despair, with respite in between when I would see people and enjoy people, because I do enjoy people one-on-one tremendously. And so when I would see friends or clients, I'd be so happy. And then I'd get by myself and back to hate life, want to die. But I told him, I said, what used to be months and years is like at the most a day, or usually moments. An hour is a long time, because of resting in the true self. This has nothing to do with me. The Lori separate self, like this is talking about, eternal holiness abides in me. It's not the separate self where eternal holiness abides. Eternal holiness abides in your true self, which is all of us. We all have it right here, right now. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to change anything. We don't have to fix anything. We simply have to acknowledge, oh my gosh, that's me. And after doing the course for so many years, whatever it was, there came a point where I went, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I'm going to believe this. I'm going to accept this as my true reality. I know the nastiness of the ego self. We all do. We all think, oh my gosh, if people could just hear my thoughts, oh my God, they'd hate me. Yeah. And I know who I am underneath all of this external veneer of the face of innocence, right? They're not going to like me. But that's the ego self. That's not who we are. And our holy self, our true self, is pure, is innocent, is light, is wholeness. And the more we accept it, it's not a matter of doing anything. It's just a matter of acceptance, which is why the Course says, I will accept atonement for myself. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept atonement. So I told my client, the more you make a habit of accepting who you really are and denying that those verbs, that verbiage in your head is yours, it's not yours. It's part of the ego thought system. You don't have to own it. The more you do that, the more of a habit it becomes, the more peaceful you will be. And I've seen it over and over and over in a lot of people. And we do get to this place of, wow, I can't believe I'm actually at this place in my life. I never thought I would be here. I thought I had to die before I could get to this place. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sharon.
Okay. It's funny because most people that do A Course in Miracles will say they don't like egos. And when I say love your brother as yourself, I'm talking about the light that's in all of us. There's a light in us that never goes out. Because the personality can't really like another personality because we clash. We have clashing dreams all the time, So that's pretty much what I saw in this whole process. But when I want to get back to this little story about my grandfather. I mean, he was a very, very quiet man, so quiet. Now, this was my father's father. And my father's mother was just, I don't know, she was not, she was nervous, a very nervous person. You wouldn't say that she was a Jewish grandmother either, my father's mother. It was my mother's mother that was like that. But my father's father was like a Buddha. He was a pharmacist. It was in Germantown, Philadelphia. He had a drugstore, and everybody in those days called him Doc. And he would, no matter what time of night in that neighborhood that his drugstore was, he would get up and make sure that he saw, I don't know what he would call them. Maybe they were just clients, customers, patients. I don't know, because he was a pharmacist. Back in those days, pharmacists had a lot of, they were like docs, that's what they used to call him, doc. Now, when he was in the hospital, before he died, my father said, Dad, all these people owe you money. I'm looking through your book. And my father was a money phobe, that he talked about not having enough money all the time. And my grandfather wasn't like that. And it's interesting because that was his father. But my grandfather said, Morton, they didn't have the money then, and they don't have it now. Let it go. And that is truly the grandfather that was quiet in my house. My mom had dinner every Sunday at our house. And honestly, he sat like the Buddha. He would just put his arms around his belly. And I just would watch him and think, oh my God, why isn't my father like him? Because my father was high strung. He didn't even know how to say hi, Sharon. He'd say, hi, Sharon, like that. He was just my parents were very, very anxious people. And I think they were traumatized, obviously, from what happened to them when my mother was so young. But my grandfather, no matter what happened, I never saw that. So when he came to me in that dream and he was physically there, I felt it. I knew that it was the infinite, because the infinite is all of us. And I knew it was the infinite, but I didn't know it then. I know it now. Then I thought I was just dreaming. And yes, I thought that when my mother said it was crazy, Mr. Goss, I just looked at, and I didn't say a word because I didn't know, right? I just didn't know. What is it that she's, what is that dream figure? The interesting thing is I have another sister, the little one we're 10 years apart, and she's about the sweetest girl that I've ever, her name's Amy, and she's just, there's just such a love. And what I learned from her gentleness too, was that she had it, that I had that too. And when I looked at my little sister and I told her about my grandfather, he came to her in the dream, but she hasn't been guided to do this path. So I got to stay quiet. But there is something, the grace of who we are is living through all of us and will give us our parts. There's nothing special about Sharon, nothing. Of course, the ego would like to believe she's nicer than most, but I'm not. Because what I did see in the last couple nights, just looking at the mind from the past, is I would hide my very, very scary thoughts of hate, because we're in one mind. So there's no ego that doesn't feel hate. And I would see, because I would think I was always gentle, but I wasn't. I had the same shtick that everybody had. Like, I remember going out on a date with a guy and he had no neck. His face was like connected to his body. And I was like ashamed to be seen with him. You see, that's cruel, but I had those feelings, right? But I look at them now and it does. I welcome them, because these are the things that I have to pretty much forgive. Because the ego's not really me. It's just a story in the mind of Sharon. And to join with my brothers is where I am now anyway. We're all joined. You know, remember, this is an inside picture of an outward condition. So, you know, when I was, going through all of this process, and even yesterday when I looked at some of the cruel things I felt as, young person, it was helpful, because the thing that the ego will continue to do is point out things like, oh, he's arrogant. Well, of course, if I see arrogance out there, that's my arrogance, right? Because we're a hologram. So I had to look at that too. Like, of course I'm arrogant. I'm not this love piece because I'm an ego. However, right-mindedness was always there for us. Now, it didn't wake up until I started this process. I think it just stays benign, quiet in the mind. But some beings have more right-mindedness than wrong-mindedness. And that is finding acceptance, And so what I saw, like right now, Ken was saying something here. The obscuring illusions of our thought system keep truth hidden in our minds, but they cannot remove its shining light. That is Jesus's real gospel. No matter how powerful the ego seems to be, it cannot take away the truth that is in us. And that's pretty much what happened when I was 10. That was the infinite coming to me. My grandfather, before he died, my mother and her mother saw a light go out the window. Now, they thought it was his light, but that light is in all of us, right? And that was an exciting thing to watch. Because that's really what we are. We're the light. So, of course, maybe there was something in my grandfather and me that saw that, Who knows how this all works? But what I feel so much joy is the fact that, in my humble opinion, I think that we won the lottery to really realize who we really are. I mean, that's a gift from God. And it's not like God said, oh, I think I'll give it to Sharon, Dove, and Lori. No, it's just the way it happened, just like everything else. There is nothing here that's personal. This is interpersonal co-arising. Everything that's happening is happening perfectly because it's not really happening, right? It's just happening in mind. There's no world. There's nothing out there. We are imagining the whole dream. But I do feel that I have absolutely no desire to completely have Sharon fall away. I don't care if she does. I'll deal with it because I'm not in control of it. But, it's interesting. Somebody told me that, pretty close to me, said, Sharon, if you didn't want that, then you probably won't get that, because we really are the dreamer of the dream, right? So we are getting everything we want. But what we have now is completeness. You know how the Course will say, I'm complete. Completeness is just this. That's all this is. It's so, so simple. And that's what I'm feeling now. I'm feeling this tremendous joy of the simplicity of the truth and not to complicate it. And if you do want to watch a movie or enjoy your life and go out and have a drink, do it. You're not going to be back here in a body again that I know of. And if you are, then you are. But I am in so much happiness and gratitude that everything that happened to this mind, and anybody that knows me knows I had a hard time. I mean, I had a very hard time with some things in this mind. However, I don't now. And I can only talk from this place now. And being sick with the COVID and then a sinus infection, my ego acted out. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. It doesn't like being sick. it's a hypochondriac when it's sick. It talks about it constantly. And I didn't hide that from anybody. I told the truth because who cares? You know, in fact, I'm the first one to say when I'm dying, don't give me the meds that, you know, do I trust? Of course I trust, but this isn't a test. This thing isn't a test to test whether we're good little Course in Miracles students or anything like that. This is our dream. And we're in charge of our dream, and we can make it as wonderful as we can. And we can put the past and all the judgments aside and say, it was just a dream. But now is all I am. I am the moment. I am the joy. And I am in love with life. And over to you, Doug. Dove, I can't hear you. Dove, you have.
Okay, I was muted, sorry. I was saying you certainly covered a lot of ground one more time, and as you completed your sharing, it just came to me that Rupert Sparrow, I think I shared it here last week, I'll share it again. He says, you know, the dream doesn't disappear, or the illusion doesn't disappear, but your ignorance of it does, which is why you can now smile and laugh at the same things that you used to believe with a lie in it. So even though things don't really change in life, you know, but you smile more, you laugh more. One of my original email passages that I completed all my emails when the internet first opened up is laughter now saves lifetimes later. So if you can smile and laugh, you know, you don't really have to come back here and repeat it all over again, because the illusion is here as long as you want to believe in it. And when you remove your belief, when you basically say, hey, listen, I have no need of this anymore. And I don't know, Laurie, were you reading from chapter 16, section 4? It's a funny thing, you know, I have these 12 core themes of A Course in Miracles, which I send to people, and the very first that follows that opens up comes from chapter 16, section 4, and I think it's what you were reading. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. It's not necessary to seek for what's true, but it is necessary to seek for what is false and remove it. Those are the toxins I was talking about earlier, because the toxins will blind you. They make you deaf, dumb, and blind, literally. I mean, you know, Jesus says you have eyes that don't see, you have ears that don't hear. And as Ken Wapping says, what do? You just keep on reading, really? He calls that the koan of all koans. That, you know, he's telling you, Jesus is telling you, you have eyes that are blind, you don't see, you have ears that are deaf, and you keep on talking and thinking you know what's going on in the world. There is no world. You got to laugh. You got to laugh, really. So it's my willingness to step back and say, is there another way of seeing this? And you're not using your body's eyes anymore. You're saying, you know, let me, instead of looking outside, let me look within. And you do have to look within, and everything that Sharon was talking about is within you. You are the love. You are the truth. You are what you're looking for. You know, in this world, we look for everything outside of us. I have special relationships, you know. In fact, that whole section, which comes from chapter 16, section 4, talks about special relationships. And he says, if you're looking for a love relationship outside of you, it's sure that you don't like yourself within. He says that the special love relationship is not perceived as a value in itself, but as a place of safety from which hatred is split off and kept apart. The special love partner is acceptable only, keyword is only, as long as he serves this purpose. Hatred can enter and indeed is welcome in some aspects of the relationship, but it's still held together by the illusion of love. If the illusion goes, the relationship is broken or becomes unsatisfying on the grounds of disillusionment. Yes, I am disillusioned, disappointed, and use all those words that start with DIS. Distracted, disappointed, disillusioned. You got to laugh. You simply got to laugh. And with that, I see we have coming towards the bottom of the hour. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Lori, so you can do the last couple of minutes. I just want to thank everyone, Sharon and Lynn and everybody at ACIM gathered for this moment. And just want to mention that tonight at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I should say, Foundation for Inner Peace, the publishers of A Course in Miracles, is doing a webinar, and Scott Grace will be on, Laura Renard and her sister is going to be on. I'm going to be on, so please join us if you can. Without further ado, Laurie, this mic is all yours.
Thanks, Dove. Yes, that was chapter 16, section 4. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all of the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And Sharon, I really appreciate you telling the story of your grandfather. I had never heard that story before. It is so wonderful when we hear from the people that have seemingly passed on in our dreams, you know, the people that have been so significant to us. What a blessing you had with him in your life. My gosh. And so getting back to reading lesson 299, eternal holiness abides in me. Paragraph 2, lines 1 to 4 say, Father, my holiness is not of me. It is not mine to be destroyed by sin. It is not mine to suffer from attack. Illusions can obscure it, but cannot put out its radiance nor dim its light. And I think this is really an important point. We have the ego thought system and we have the Holy Spirit's thought system, and never the twain shall meet. It's one or the other. And the Course says that over and over and over again. And yet most metaphysical paths try to combine the two, and you really can't. Your ego self is hatred, fear, guilt, past, future. Your holy self is the now, as you were talking earlier on, Sharon, that to live in the now, you're saying, is to be fully human. And I love that reframe. That's just beautiful, because when we're in the now, we're not judging a person's past. We're not seeing them as the body. We're not anticipating what we will do or what they'll be to us in the future. We're just seeing now. And that's where my grandbabies have really helped me a lot, because they're in the now. They don't know about the past or the future. They can't even conceive of time. And for my granddaughter, she's just going to school now. She's 5. She's starting to learn about time. But before she learned about time, everything that happened was yesterday. She just talked about the past as yesterday, just yesterday. So if it was 3 weeks ago or 3 years ago, it was yesterday. And it was just kind of cute to watch that. But I see that it's 9:30 and Regis just joined the room. So I will let go of the mic, and thank you, Dove. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Regis. Thank you, ACIM Gather. I love ACIM Gather. And I'll let go and see you guys later. Bye.
Bye. I just want to mention tonight at 7 o'clock, we have a deep dive into the Manual for Teachers. Please join us on ACIM Gather Zoom. Regis, everybody loves Regis. You're on.
Absolutely. And thanks you guys so very much.